Have you ever wondered about the most dangerous places on Earth for women? A thought-provoking question indeed, one that may have crossed your mind at some point. History hasn't always been fair to women, who continue to be excluded from many aspects of public life, such as politics, education, and equal employment opportunities, a grim reality that still echoes worldwide. In these areas, women are subject to grave threats to their safety, including physical harm, emotional trauma, systemic oppression, and distressing historical practices like foot binding, female genital mutilation, FGM, and forced marriages. Despite such adversities, women have demonstrated remarkable resilience and courage in defending their rights. But what can women in these societies do to protect themselves from both physical and psychological attacks? One key measure is education. This includes understanding their rights and the laws that protect them, as well as learning about different ways to physically protect themselves, such as through self-defense training. They also need to cultivate strong support networks, both within and outside their communities. Establishing contact with local and international women's rights groups organizations can provide resources, support, and guidance. Mental health is equally important. Seeking therapy or counseling can help manage the emotional burden and trauma. In the face of authoritarian regimes, women have challenged oppressive laws and norms, often leading militant protests and civil disobedience. In societies plagued by gender inequality, women have spearheaded initiatives for educational and economic empowerment. Amid communities dealing with gender-based violence, women have created support networks and advocacy groups to challenge and change the status quo. These steps towards self-protection and empowerment, however, don't come easy. It's a progressive journey, one that involves gathering, creating personal plans, finding allies, mobilizing resources, and constantly evaluating progress. Moreover, it also requires courage to stand against deeply ingrained societal norms and oppressions. And the fight is not just individual. Communities and societies at large need to take a stand too. They need to ensure proper enforcement of laws, push for reforms, and create safe spaces for women. Education and awareness at all levels are crucial to change mindsets. The COVID-19 pandemic has thrown another curveball, exacerbating existing inequalities. Women have had to grapple with job loss, increased domestic duties, and a higher risk of domestic violence. Yet, this has also led to a rise in women-led initiatives for community resilience and pandemic response. In this enlightening exploration, we delve into these hazardous territories, regions riddled with inequality, violence, inadequate legal protection, poor healthcare, and systemic discrimination. As we navigate through these treacherous terrains, we will also be uncovering 30 lesser-known or under-recognized facts about the treatment of women in these regions, as well as their spirited defiance and resilience. Facts that are sure to leave you astounded. Prepare yourself for an eye-opening journey through the 40 most dangerous places for women, ranked in ascending order of danger, interspersed with startling revelations and inspiring stories of resistance. Stay tuned to uncover the untold truths and learn more about women's fight for a safer, fairer world. Before we go deeper into our list of perilous places, let's make a compelling comparison between historical atrocities and the current state of women's rights and safety. The Rwandan genocide from 1994 was a horrifying event where women were abused and often infected with HIV. When we compare this to today, we see that although efforts are being made to improve women's safety in conflict zones, sexual violence remains a horrific reality for many. The comfort women system during World War II saw approximately 200,000 women coerced into sexual slavery by the Imperial Japanese Army. Today, sex trafficking remains a global problem, showing that we have a long way to go in eradicating this form of exploitation. The Srebrenica massacre in 1995 witnessed the systematic rape and murder of Bosniak women by Serbian forces. Conflict-related sexual violence continues to be a serious issue in present conflicts. The Indian partition of 1947 saw women from all sides falling victim to sexual violence and honor killings. Today, although strides have been made in awareness and legislation, honor-based violence still persists in some societies. The Yazidi genocide by ISIS in 2014 involved the enslavement, rape, and murder of Yazidi women and girls. Today, the survivors face a daunting task of rebuilding their lives amidst ongoing insecurity. The Nanking Massacre between 1937 and 1938 witnessed the rape and murder of Chinese women by Japanese soldiers. Today, the memory of the event continues to inform China's stance on women's safety and rights. The witch trials during the 16th and 17th centuries tortured and executed women based on accusations of witchcraft. Today, this form of persecution has mostly ceased, but accusations of witchcraft can still lead to violence in some regions. The Boko Haram kidnappings in 2014 caused an international outcry when 276 Nigerian schoolgirls were kidnapped. Today, efforts have increased globally to protect children, especially girls, from such atrocities. The Magdalene laundries from the 19th to the 20th centuries forced fallen women into hard labor in Ireland. Today, the struggle continues for the rights of vulnerable and marginalized women. The Guatemalan Civil War from 1960 to 1996 saw indigenous women systematically raped and tortured. Today, indigenous women's rights are gaining more recognition, but they remain among the most vulnerable groups worldwide. Historical atrocities serve to remind us of the ongoing struggle for gender equality, justice, and safety. As we move forward, let's bear these historical events in mind and remember that our exploration of the most dangerous places for women is not just an academic exercise, but a call to action. Before we dive into our list, it's crucial to take a step back and understand the historical context that has led to these perilous conditions for women. The journey of women's rights and safety is a long, complex, and ongoing struggle. From time immemorial, women have been systematically excluded from various spheres of public life, such as politics, education, and equal employment opportunities. This pattern of exclusion is not just a relic of history, but continues to persist in many parts of the world. Historical practices like foot binding in China, female genital mutilation in several African and Middle Eastern countries, and forced marriages prevalent in various regions around the globe have all contributed to the systemic oppression of women. These practices, often rooted in patriarchal beliefs and traditions, have had a profound and lasting impact on women's safety and well-being. Moreover, the witch trials of the early modern period in Europe and North America and the gender discrimination that led to the suffragette movement in the late 19th and early 20th centuries provide stark reminders of the deep-seated prejudices against women. Even today, the gender pay gap persists, and the #MeToo movement has highlighted the widespread issue of sexual harassment and assault. Furthermore, it's important to recognize the unique challenges faced by women of color, indigenous women, women with disabilities, and LGBTQ+ women. These groups often find themselves at the intersection of multiple forms of discrimination and violence. The global COVID-19 pandemic has also had a disproportionate impact on women. Women have been hit harder by job loss, have taken on increased domestic responsibilities, and have faced a heightened risk of domestic violence. The fight for gender equality continues, with the pandemic revealing and exacerbating existing inequalities. With this historical context in mind, let's delve into our exploration of the most dangerous places for women around the world, bearing in mind the systemic and historical factors that have contributed to the current situation. At number 40, we find Afghanistan. A country ensnared in a tightening grip of protracted conflict, it has become alarmingly perilous for women. The women in this war-torn nation grapple with severe threats of domestic violence, with an estimated 87% suffering from at least one form of domestic violence, according to the United Nations. Let's take the story of 16-year-old Zara, a poignant representation of the situation. Sold into marriage to settle a family debt, she's been denied a future of her own. She is one of the countless young girls forced into marriage, creating a chilling statistic that reveals that more than half of all girls are married before they turn 19. Not only are they trapped in a cycle of violence and oppression, but they're also denied fundamental rights like education and healthcare. UNESCO reports that only 37% of adolescent girls are literate, while the World Health Organization illustrates the dire healthcare situation with a high maternal mortality rate of 638 deaths per 100,000 live births. These conditions push women further the shadows. The societal fabric, once a tapestry of diverse cultures and traditions, has been disrupted due to the recent political upheavals. The situation unfortunately seems to be worsening with the recent political changes. The lives of Afghan women hang in the balance as their rights and freedoms continue. Next, the situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo, located at the 39th spot. This nation has been ensnared in a brutal civil war and political instability for years now. The civil war, which has been fueled by ethnic tensions and political power struggles, has had a devastating impact on the social and economic fabric of the country. It's not just the constant threat of violence that looms large, but also the social implications of the conflict. Particularly alarming is the predicament of the country's womenfolk. Women are frequent targets of sexual violence, a horrifying weapon often used in this conflict. This form of aggression not only violates their human rights, but also shatters their sense of security and well-being, further worsening the mental health crisis in the region. It creates a climate of fear and uncertainty, making their life a daily battle for survival. The international community has been cognizant of the situation, with numerous humanitarian efforts being launched. Yet, despite these initiatives, to be elusive, the country is still steeped in violence and fear, with the life of its citizens marked by uncertainty. Despite the spotlight thrown by international organizations and media, the situation remains stark and grim, with little change in the women's plight. This persistent struggle underscores the need for stronger and more effective interventions to ensure their safety. Moving forward, we shift our focus to the city of Ciudad Juarez in Mexico. This city is notorious for its alarmingly high rates of femicide and violence, particularly targeted towards women. Ciudad Juarez has become a tragic symbol of the global femicide crisis, wherein women are subjected to violent acts simply because of their gender. This city is deeply entrenched in a battle against these grave issues, with the fight seeming to persist indefinitely. The city's struggle is not just a fight against crime, but a struggle for justice, equality, and respect for every woman's life. Efforts to curb this violence and ensure safety for all its residents, especially women, are ongoing, but the situation remains grim and highly challenging. The crimes against women, tragically, often slip through the cracks of the justice system, remaining unpunished. This absence of justice not only highlights the severity of the issue, but also the deeply rooted systemic flaws that allow such heinous acts to go unchecked, a harsh reflection of a society that often fails its most vulnerable members. The situation in Ciudad Juarez continues to be critical, with a large number of crimes against women going unreported, and even more, going unpunished. It serves as a chilling reminder of the urgent need for global action to protect women's rights and lives. At the 36th position, we find Somalia. This nation has been cloaked in chaos and disorder for many decades. Anarchy prevails, with the rule of law obscured by unlawful practices and violence. Somalia is a country where women disproportionately bear the brunt of the ensuing turbulence. The most vulnerable victims of this societal disorder are the women who must navigate a life fraught with fear, uncertainty, and victimization. Heinous practices like female genital mutilation, forced marriages, and rampant violence are deeply entrenched societal issues. These are not sporadic incidents, but systematic, widespread issues that millions of women in Somalia grapple with daily. This brutal cycle of violence seems unending, causing continual distress and turmoil in the lives of innocent women. The struggle to change the status quo is an uphill battle. Progress towards equality and safety for women appears like a distant dream, with the path to improvement often appearing steep and treacherous. Despite the tireless efforts of local and international organizations, the situation remains disheartening. The reality is that little has changed over the years, reflecting a state of societal stagnation. Unfortunately, the image of progress is akin to an illusion, continually out of reach. The situation seems to be in a state of stasis, with minimal advancements seen in the fight against the oppression and violence faced by women. It is a harsh truth that needs to be recognized and addressed with urgency. Somalia's state of anarchy has been a consistent backdrop to the lives of its female population, affecting them disproportionately in terms of securing the 35th position is India, a nation experiencing significant economic growth. However, the country grapples with severe safety issues for women. These problems primarily stem from alarmingly high rates of sexual violence, with shocking statistics showing that a woman is raped every 20 minutes in India. Furthermore, the pervasive discrimination is deeply rooted in society, with women often being denied the same opportunities as men in terms of education, employment, and social status. However, there are glimmers of hope in the form of increased social awareness. More people are speaking up and fighting against such injustices, making it a topic of national concern. Campaigns and movements like #MeToo have gained momentum, bringing the issue to the forefront of social discussion. Simultaneously, impactful legal changes have been made. After the infamous 2012 Delhi gang rape case, India passed more stringent laws against sexual violence, making punishments more severe. Rape that leaves the victim in a vegetative state or causes death, and rape of minors under 12 are now punishable by death. Nevertheless, despite these positive changes, the journey towards a safer India for women is far from over. Our countdown continues with the 34th most dangerous place, Saudi Arabia. Despite recent strides towards equality, women still face severe limitations in this conservative kingdom. The rights of women are far from ideal, even after recent structural changes initiated by the ruling monarchy. For instance, it was only in 2018 that a ban was lifted allowing women to drive. However, they still require the permission of a male guardian to do so. Similarly, the guardianship system, which required women to seek the consent of their male guardian for various life decisions, was only partially dismantled in 2019. Despite these reforms, women still have limited autonomy and access to justice in cases of domestic abuse. Historically, women were also severely restricted in their ability to travel. While laws have been passed recently that allow women over the age of 21 to travel without a guardian's consent, the execution of these laws remains to be seen. Although the situation is gradually improving, we must remain patient to see sustainable transformation. The reforms are a step towards gender equality, but much more needs to be done. The future seems promising with the current pace of reform, but only time will tell how effectively such reforms will be implemented and what long-term impact they will have on the lives of women in Saudi Arabia. As we journey deeper into our world, the dangers only multiply. We traverse perilous territories, starting with the clandestine hubs of human trafficking hidden deep within Eastern Europe. In these shadowy places, illicit trades thrive, lives are bought and sold like commodities, and fear is a constant companion. We then move through the battle-stricken regions in the Middle East, where the echoes of war reverberate through the dust-filled air, and danger lurks in the wrecks of former homes. Unexploded ordnances, invisible territorial lines, and the constant threat of violence create an atmosphere of constant vigilance and fear. Our journey then takes us further, to the menacing gang-ruled locales of Central America. Here, turf wars dictate the rhythm of daily life, gunfire is as common as the sunrise, and the law often sits in the pocket of the highest bidder. Every corner of the world holds a new danger, an unfolding story of survival and adversity. Peaking at the zenith of our list, we unveil the most treacherous terrain for women worldwide, North Korea, a veiled nation enveloped in a shroud of secrecy and enigma. This clandestine country has earned notoriety due to the widespread and systematic human rights abuses committed against its citizens, particularly women. These abuses range from forced labor and torture to public executions and sexual exploitation. Women here endure lives teeming with relentless hardship, palpable fear, and unending strife, a direct consequence of oppressive laws and entrenched societal norms. These are not mere aberrations, but a part of the systemic and deliberate policy of subjugation by the state. Compounding this dire situation, North Korea's extreme isolation from the global community serves to reinforce the cycle of abuse and oppression. This isolation is not merely geographical, but also political and economic. It allows the regime to control information flow, manipulate public narrative, and curtail any dissent, all while evading international scrutiny. Due to this, even amidst international outrage, the situation stays dire, with no glimmer of hope visible on the horizon. The nation's isolation and the regime's adamantine control act as formidable roadblocks to any prospective amelioration. Thus, the future for women in North Korea appears bleak and desolate, overshadowed by the country's isolation and the regime's unyielding. In conclusion, our world, as fascinating as it is laden with distinct risks that are primarily aimed at women. These hazards are not limited to one region or demographic, but are spread across the globe, presenting a different set of challenges in each of the 40 locations we've delved into. For instance, in some parts, women face the brutalities of violence and discrimination. In others, they are held back by limited opportunities for education and inadequate healthcare. The depth of these issues varies from place to place, but the unifying theme is the unique set of challenges they pose for women. However, let's not lose sight of the bright side in these grim realities. All around the world, efforts to address these threats are ongoing and intensifying. Governments, organizations, and individuals are tirelessly pressing forward, turning the gears of change in the hope of creating a safer, more equitable world for all, from policy reforms to grassroots initiatives, from awareness campaigns to education drives. The collective push towards a better, safer future for women is palpable. Though the future remains uncertain, these relentless efforts provide a beacon of hope. Perhaps with time, we might discover more effective methods to tackle threats, paving the way for a more secure world for all. But until that day comes, the mysteries and perils of our planet continue to captivate us and fuel our determination. We press on because we must.